I just love the authenticity that you walk through as a mom of four, married, high capacity leader, some great training and counseling and some other things. I just thought you would have some great things to add to the conversation. So maybe we could get started by just saying, how are you seeing grief run rampant in our culture right now?
Grief is just, it's so widespread right now, right? You have the spectrum of people who are dealing with death of family or friends or sickness, all the way down to a loss of routine, or for an introvert like myself, a loss of alone time, which for me is a key part of just functioning well. And so to not have that right now, there's just grief and so many stages in between. Of course, lost jobs, or missing being with friends or family, or missing like major life events, like maybe they can't attend a wedding or graduations that didn't happen.
You have some big steps, big season for one of your kids, right? Senior year. Talk a little bit about how that's different.
Yeah, so our oldest is about to start his senior year, and just we don't know at all what that looks like right now. And he's an athlete, and there's a few colleges that have been talking to him, which is great. And I told him the other day, like, man, what a blessing that you haven't played a down of senior football and you actually have schools already talking to you. But and he acknowledged that, but also just said to me the other night, he's like, Mom, the uncertainty is just so hard right now. Like, are we going to play? Are we not going to play? What does that mean for my future? So yeah, it's just tricky. And I think the uncertainty in and of itself breeds grief without us really knowing it, because we just feel uncertainty doesn't, we think, well, I just don't know what's going to happen, but it feels a lot like grief.
Maybe God could point us toward a life of thriving even in a crazy time. And so was thinking a little bit about Philippians, and where Paul said he had learned to be content in every situation. But you can't move to that, I don't think, without doing something with grief. So as you think about all those losses and things, and have spent a little bit of time thinking about how to point people through that, what are some of the best ideas that you have that would be good starting points for us to step through grief well?
I mean, some people know the stages of grief, some people don't. So quickly, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance, which I would also liken to contentment. But that's a process, and it's sometimes a long process, and it's not necessarily linear either. So you might feel angry one day, and then and then you're at sadness, and so you're like, okay, I think I'm here, I'll be accepting. But then suddenly you're angry again, and then you're frustrated by that. So I've done a little bit of research on this idea of lament, and there's 4 stages of lament, which look very similar to the stages of grief. But the biggest thing about lament is that it really is a form of prayer, and it has a specific purpose though, and the purpose is to have us learn to trust, to get us back to that place of trusting that God is good, that he is who he says he is, that he's sovereign, that he died for us for a purpose, and that he's going to walk through all of this hard stuff with us.
I don't think lament is like a common word that people
No.
really use, right? But it really is a way to invite God into our grief. And so, how do we do that well?
Yeah, so the biggest thing that I think, so lament is talking to God about your pain. So instead of just sitting with it or stewing with it, or even talking to your friends or family, which I think is fantastic and is definitely kind of one of my top tools of something that I think that we should do. But sometimes there's such an importance to the lament piece of talking to God about our pain, because it's reminding us that we're dependent upon him, instead of us just trying to take control and go, I got this, or I don't got this, and I'm just going to spiral out of control. It's reminding us of our dependence upon God.
from all the different experience that you've had and ways of walking through this, do you have any pointers for how people can do that really well?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, in my experience, a few things that I've learned to do for myself that help me navigate grief is one of them is to really taking time to evaluate how I'm feeling. I think in my husband's world, they call this situational awareness. Like, and it's so easy to just have no idea how we're feeling. And then kind of all of these cards just start falling because maybe we are just numbing or we're angry and reacting, and none of those. I feel like it's so hard to get to walk through these stages of grief and to have any hope of contentment without kind of taking time to just evaluate what am I feeling right now. My number two looks like staying connected to God and to his people. There's different ways to do that right now, right? I mean, I think some of us are getting back together with people on a small scale, and some of us still aren't comfortable doing that. And that's, everybody has their own way of navigating that right now. But whatever way that you can connect with your people, whether it's your family, your small group, good friends, even if they live, across the country or whatever, I think having those people that I can just call and be like, hey, I'm having a really rough day, and just having someone to listen and kind of understand and just, again, and they might even point you back to, hey, you're just being way too hard on yourself. My third thing is pursuing the things that make you feel alive, even if in this season it's just this little bit alive. In our minds, we're still just swirling because of the loss and the uncertainty, and what is school going to look like for my kids? There's just so many unknowns that can just send our mind just absolutely swirling. So I don't know, I'm big on just taking time to evaluate yourself, to stay connected to God, in that way that we kind of talked about lament a little bit. Cry out to him in your pain, confess to him, I need you, I'm dependent upon you, this is so hard. And then having, and your people, and then next I'd say go to your people, and then finding those outlets that just, even if it's starting small, 15 minutes, that's what I've told people over the years that I've helped at all, is take 15 minutes for yourself. What makes you feel good in those 15 minutes?
That's great. Thanks a ton for letting us in on some really great insight.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome.